Publish, Position, Profit, Episode 2.
Helping experts and entrepreneurs share their message with the world so that they can build a successful business doing something they love, live life on their terms, and inspire others. Welcome to Publish, Position, Profit with your host, John Ty.
Hey, and welcome to Publish, Position, Profit. This is your host, John Ty. Let's get straight into the show. I'm very excited to introduce an amazing guest we've got today. His name is Daniel Priestley. Now, I first met Daniel or heard Daniel speak about a year ago at a marketing event in London. And when I set up this podcast, Daniel was one of the very first people I thought I needed to get on the show because he is a perfect fit. So let me give you a little bit of background about Daniel, and then I'll introduce him to you. Daniel's a successful entrepreneur, international speaker, and best-selling author of Key Person of Influence and Entrepreneur Revolution. Daniel started out as an entrepreneur aged 21 and built a multi-million-dollar event marketing and management business before the age of 25. Daniel has bought, sold, and turned around businesses in his career as an entrepreneur. He has raised money and built businesses in multiple countries. He was fortunate to be mentored by Mike Harris, who has built 3 iconic multi-billion-pound businesses. And Daniel's raised hundreds of thousands of pounds for charity and served on the board of several organizations. In 2010, Daniel co-founded Entrevo, an entrepreneur growth accelerator designed to assist key people of influence to become more visible, valuable, and connected. Daniel has a passion for global small business and has been sharing the concept of an entrepreneur revolution since 2007. His belief is that an entrepreneur revolution is unfolding whereby talented people are choosing entrepreneurship over traditional employment. So that's the quick bio. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, John.
Great to have you on here. Daniel, are you ready to publish, position, and profit?
I do.
Awesome.
Yes.
That's great. So Daniel, we always start the show out with what we call the getting to know you round. So I've given the listeners your bio, quick overview, but that doesn't really do justice to what you've achieved. So can you tell us in your own words what it is you do and what you're working on right now?
So at the moment, we run an entrepreneur growth and leadership program in 7 cities around the world. So we're in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Singapore, London, and we're in 2 cities in the USA, in Florida. And what we do is we bring together entrepreneurs who are building a business with ultra-high net worth individuals and people who are best-selling authors, award-winning entrepreneurs and leaders, and we get them together in small rooms where we can work on the businesses. And we have a nine-month program that we have that we work people through. So someone starts off, and then 40 weeks later, they've worked through all the modules. And then we look at things like whether they are interested in investment, whether they're interested in other growth strategies, whether they need different services and structuring and those sorts of things, or whether they want to stay the size that they're at and be a lifestyle business. So we've had over 1,000 entrepreneurs go through that program. We've worked with some of the world's most celebrated entrepreneurs, celebrity entrepreneurs, people who are very well known in their field. And we've produced hundreds of authors because part of the process is to write a book or a blog, and we've radically grown a lot of businesses. So my time is involved in expanding that. We have a goal that we would like to be in 20 cities around the world. So my goal is to help open up new cities and to find new leaders. And also I work on other projects. So one of our clients, I just was able to get them funded with millions of pounds to go into their business at a very high valuation. And that was last week. We got a commitment for that. And I also do some things like buying companies. So at the moment I'm in the process of buying a business that I think fits really well with our business, and I'm just in the final stages of doing that. So I guess I do that. I live in London. I travel a fair bit. I feel like my home is planet Earth, so I'm quite happy moving around.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I do is I write. So I keep a fairly active blog. I'm currently have a deal to produce a 3rd book, which comes out next year. So those sorts of things, I love to use my time when I'm flying around to write books and that sort of thing.
Well, that last one is a good tip, is using that extra, that sort of spare time you have. So that's amazing, Daniel. I mean, 40-week program, 1,000 entrepreneurs already. hundreds of authors and fantastic goal. And you say you were in 7 cities or 9 right now?
7 cities.
7 cities and a goal of 20. So that's, there's a lesson there in having some big goals. So that's great. So you've given us a little bit of an overview of where you are today. Can you tell us the story of how you got started and, how you got to where you are right now? Because I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah, my passion has always been to be an entrepreneur all through my teenage years. It started very, very young for me. I was buying and selling things from as young as about age 10, running garage sales. I ran discos at the school to raise money for the school. I then got into, at age 19, I got into underage dance parties where I worked with the local council and the local radio station, McDonald's, to put together these underage dance parties. With my business partner, we were running these dance parties around southeast Queensland and built a business around that. I was very lucky to be mentored at age 19 to 21 by a very interesting gentleman who was a multi-millionaire entrepreneur, a young guy, just under 40, and he had built, successful business, and he was very, very savvy when it came to sales and marketing. I was mentored by him solidly for 2 years. I worked very intense hours for 2 years. And then at the end of 2 years, I decided I was going to go off and start my own company at age 21. Mm-hmm. So at 21, I launched a business. We did over $1 million worth of sales in the first 12 months. And by year 3 or 4, we were up around $10 million of sales that we were making within a few years. So it was one of those really rapid, fast growth businesses that we were doing and built up a team of quite a lot of people. So all through my 20s, I was doing the entrepreneur journey. You can hear that I'm Australian. Yep. About mid-20s, I moved to London. I set up an office here in London and we basically launched here as well. So, so it's a very, I guess, an entrepreneurial journey. I've never actually really had a proper job. Even when I was working for the other gentleman, I was on commission only, and it was set up as my own consulting business. My proper jobs include working at McDonald's, Pizza Hut delivery, and working behind a bar. So they're the only proper jobs I've had.
Well, that's a great story. And, as somebody, I'm talking about myself now, who came to entrepreneurship a little bit later in life, I kind of wish that I had gone down a road more similar to yours and started really from leaving school, just because I think, well, how much further forward would I be? But I think that, there's a lesson that it's never too early or too late to start if you want to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So one of the questions I got for you here, Daniel, is this one. As entrepreneurs, we often learn as much, if not more, from our failures as from our successes. So can you share a story of struggle you've had to overcome in this journey you've just described to us and the lesson that you learned from that?
Well, an enormous amounts of struggle, actually. So I mentioned about building a business up to 10 million. Well, the year after that, we had a massive falling out with the people who we were partnering with. I had a very clear gut feeling that I did not want to be in business with these people, and very sharply I drove a wedge in and said, we're not going to do any more work with these guys. Unfortunately, that was the entire business was based around this. So it meant, effectively my business had to go back to square one, except for the fact that we had 17 staff and we had offices and we had all of those overheads. So, we essentially cut everything, drew a line in the sand and lost a ton of money. So I'd made a lot of money and then I lost a lot of money, reinventing the business. After that, during the recession, had an incredible, difficult time. I made a decision when the front page of the newspaper, at the time we had a business turning over £4 million, and I saw front page of the newspaper said, world's biggest recession for 100 years is coming, and that's what it's going to be. And I had this crazy idea I think I was 27 or 28 at the time, and I had this crazy idea that what we would do is keep aggressively marketing and aggressively selling, and we wouldn't change our strategy at all, and we'd be the only company out there doing business, and we'd pick up all the business, and we would, expand our market share and all of these kind of ideas that I had. and it was turned out to be a completely disastrous strategy. Even with all of our efforts, we went from £4 million in 2008 to £400,000 revenue in 2009, something like that. So it was a 90% reduction. And of course, we had increased our overheads in order to try and pick up this market share, this courageous plan that I had in mind. And once again, I literally plowed through over $1 million worth of cash, which was lost, and found myself moving from a massive penthouse apartment to a spare bedroom of my sister, who's 8 years younger than I am, for a short period there. So, there's all through the journey, there's been plenty of struggle. You talked about wishing that you'd, sort of started entrepreneurship earlier. There's been plenty of times I wish I had have had a good, solid, safe job through that journey.
Yeah, we'll have those moments, I think. Yeah.
Exactly. So the grass is greener for both sides of the fence at times. And I certainly had those moments, where it was pretty tough. Funny thing is looking back on it, I think some of my most exhilarating moments are in the whole startup phase, where from 0 to 1 million is an incredibly exciting period of time in any business. The kicking it off and getting that first revenues flowing and getting it up to that million mark, is actually a lot of fun. And some of the best times. So maybe I just loved that and created scenarios where I could go back to that.
Go back and do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, have you got any well, maybe just one lesson that you could pull out of all that, apart from the fact that you want to make sure you don't start over again?
Well, I'm not afraid of starting over again.
Yeah.
Things are a little different now, because I'm more family orientated, but me, personally, I'm not afraid of that. It's not something I want to do, but it's not something I'm afraid of. I suppose there were some very clear lessons. The recession story was a good one, which was, all the personal development under the sun about being bold and courageous and all of those sorts of things. Taking on an entire economy is probably not a great idea. There are times to go with the flow. So go snowboarding in winter, play tennis in summer is a good formula. Playing tennis in winter is probably not so fun, and trying to snowboard in summer is probably not so fun. So I was playing a strategy called let's play tennis in the winter.
Yeah.
And that wasn't a good strategy. So that was a good lesson. And then the big lesson in all of that was the lesson of reinvention. So, in both of those examples, I was forced to reinvent. Mm-hmm. And in both of those examples, I had underlying assets that I did take for granted, sorry. And we were forced to get really clear about what is the real value that we offer here? What's the true value proposition? What is it that we know? What are the insights that we have? So it was shortly after that period of time that I rebuilt, and actually I wrote the book Key Person of Influence. I launched the Key Person of Influence Growth Accelerator, because what it was all about is we actually had we had an incredible network of ultra high net worth individuals. We had a network of people who we knew how they had started up and grown. We had deep insights into what made someone a key person of influence, because of the nature of the old business, where we were promoting key people of influence, and we had people getting up on stage. We actually had very deep insights as to why we would choose certain people and why we wouldn't choose others. And those insights we took for granted until such time as we were forced to relook at what it is we knew. And as a result, we said, hey, wait a second, we actually have some very valuable intellectual property around what speeds up the process of becoming a key person of influence.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of great reinvention that can happen in those times.
That's great. And I think, as I say, to pull that lesson out for people, don't be afraid to start again. And as you say, reinvent yourself, but you're carrying forward all that knowledge, all that experience, the intellectual property, the contacts, all of those different things come forward with you to the next business. I mean, even if the old business crashes, and that's happened to me, you take forward all that knowledge and that experience. And sometimes people hit it out of the park straight away, but more often than not, I think entrepreneurs will fail at least one time. The difference very often between long-term success and failure is whether or not somebody keeps going. It's like get knocked down 6 times, get up 7, that kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And there's no question. The first time around, I was very, very lucky. Right time, right place, right economy, right product. it was less to do with any form of brilliance and more to do with, just good circumstances.
Yeah.
I look back at the entrepreneur, when I started versus where we are today, and I'm very grateful for the ups and the downs.
Yeah, well, if it makes you feel any better, the first business I started in 2009 after I left, I was a corporate lawyer before. After I left law behind, was an online real estate company in 2009 as things were crashing around us here in the UK. So that's definitely trying to snowboard in the summer.
Yeah, you were playing tennis in the winter with me.
Yeah, that's right. I'll see you on court.
Yeah.
Great. So, Daniel, we've learned a lot about you already from those questions, and some great lessons there. Now for a really important question. What makes you passionate about what you do, and why is that?
I derive my passion from the times that we're living in. I really do feel that I'm incredibly fortunate to be born in such a unique time. I think that, the fact that I feel like I was born straddling two eras, you had the industrial age, and now we're going into something that's digital and intangible and transformational. And we've not really given it a name. I attempted to give it a name in my book, Entrepreneur Revolution, as opposed to the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
But there's probably a bit more depth to it as well. It's probably about empowerment and there's a lot of transformation going on. So I look at the fact that, I'm born in these incredibly remarkable times, and every single day I want to make the most of that. For me, it feels like, being born in the Renaissance, versus the Dark Ages, or, being, born at the very cusp of, the Industrial Revolution. But of course, even if you were born at the cusp of the Industrial Revolution, there was nothing you could do about it unless you were born kind of in the right families or were incredibly lucky. Yeah. Whereas we now live in a time where really anyone can empower themselves and grow a passion and do what they like. And we're living in a very, very different and unique time. So as soon as I tune into that and get present to what's going on the planet right now, I just have a very deep, long-lasting passion that just seems to not run out.
Yeah.
It keeps me inspired no matter what, and also makes me feel that there's still a lot of work to be done.
First of all, I couldn't agree more. And secondly, I think that's awesome. And that is really drills into why I wanted to have you on the show, because I think, what you're doing is absolutely amazing in terms of helping people, entrepreneurs grow and get their message out and get published and all of those things. So it's great to hear you say that, because we're definitely on the same page with that one. Okay, so let's move on now to the publishing round.
The publishing round.
So, Daniel, this is where we take a deep dive into what publishing means to you in the context of marketing your business and how you've been able to successfully leverage publishing to position yourself and to profit. And I know you've sort of touched on this a little bit already, but let's start with the first of those questions. Let's break it down. And let's start with, what does publishing mean to you in the context of your business? How do you get your message out?
Well, my business, like most businesses, at the core is intellectual property. And I think that these days the DNA of any growing business is going to be intellectual property. So if you're not publishing, really you're not creating intellectual property. Or flip that, if you are publishing, then you are actually creating intellectual property on a regular basis. A business is essentially a way of leveraging insights. So if you're not sitting on any valuable insights, there's not a lot to leverage there. You can have all the CRM systems, and you can have all the websites, and you can have all the online shopping carts, and you can have all of the stuff, and none of it will make any difference whatsoever, because you're not actually leveraging any unique insight. So the way you get to having unique insights, the way that you get to having, valuable intellectual property, or one of the ways you get there is publishing. It's probably the most consistent and reliable way to get there. If you look at a lot of the world's biggest businesses, they began with publishing. So Richard Branson began as a publisher who had to pump out enormous amounts of content. Through the process of publishing, he met all the right people. He had valuable insights. He could tell the difference between, someone who was going to make it and someone who wouldn't.
Yeah.
If you look at Bill Gates, he began by writing articles for PC Magazine saying that there's going to be a software revolution and that there's going to be a software industry. And his articles attracted his first employees, and the people who joined the company read those, articles and became inspired to become part of his vision for this software industry. So you can see, just when you go looking, you can actually see example after example.
It's a real pattern there, isn't it?
Yeah, the Twitter founder, I saw Biz Stone 2 weeks ago, and so Biz Stone was actually writing a blog called The Genius Labs, and he wrote 2 books. And as a result of that blog and those 2 books, he met his co-founders of Twitter. They got together, he was reading their blogs, by the way, Ev's blogs. And they got together as a result of what they were publishing. They could see that they were on the same page with the ideas that they were having. So we live in this world where published content gets found anywhere in the world. People are searching. I look at my blog, and every single day, it's remarkable the amount of people who hit the blog. Hundreds of people hit the blog simply because they've gone and searched something that's relevant on one of my blogs, and they begin the journey of getting to know me because they've gone and found something I wrote maybe in 2010 or 2011. And that content is a non-stop opportunity magnet. Once it's up there, it's working for me 24/7. It's a very valuable part of the business. So in answer to your question, publishing is at the core of our business. Where we are massive believers in published content and the value that it brings.
Great. And so you've got the blog, you've got obviously the 2 books and a third one coming out next year. Obviously, you do some interviews as well, like this one. Yeah. And have you got other ways in which you get the message out as well on top of those things?
I'm a contributor. I'm a contributor to several magazines and larger blogs that are up and running. So I write for a number of different blogs, or I syndicate on a number of different blogs as well. I used to own a platform that had 125,000 blogs on it, and that was getting 4 million views per month. Yeah. We since sold that, but I owned a lot of content in that regard. We're looking at getting back into that sort of business as well. And I've been part of a number of research type papers and those kind of things along the way. So there's several different ways,
And of course you speak as well, don't you? So
yeah, I speak, and then you've got things like audio publishing and video publishing. We've got a video channel online that has over 150,000 views. We have audio downloads, all those kind of things, I guess would be the broader sense of publishing.
I mean, which is great because, you're obviously tapping into lots of different ways. If for anybody who's listening to this and is just starting out, don't feel like you have to do all of these things right out of the gate. Start with 1 or 2 and then you can, or find which ones work for you and build up, and you can start adding different streams as you go. But, this is where you can get to it. And it comes back to the whole point of we live in this amazing time where for free, basically, or for very little cost, we can reach thousands, tens of thousands, potentially millions of people with our message, whatever that may be. So, Daniel, you're a great example of that, and ticking lots of different boxes there.
Yeah, and of course, the other one is I just realized I've somehow published 10,400 tweets.
Right. Yeah. Well, social media is a big one too.
Yeah. So they're not long, but I'm sure 10,000 tweets would probably be worth a book now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and of course, that's another great content creation strategy is to take your tweets or take blog posts that can be repurposed into a book, for example. That's quite a common strategy, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a question here. I almost feel like it's redundant because it's in what way is this important to your business? But you've sort of answered that already. I mean, it sounds like all the things you do drive massive amounts of traffic to people, introduce them to you and your business.
I can give you some tangibles. It generates fresh leads, people interested in doing business with us. People who are already interested in doing business with us often go away and read all of the content and then get very excited. The media generates opportunities by seeing the published content. People, like yourself, John, I think you might have read my book or something like that.
Well, I have, yeah. I mean, I've got it on the shelf behind me. So I first came across you through the speaking gig that you did a year or so back. And then I went home and got the book from Amazon, read it straight away. And and obviously checked out all the websites and so on.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is that, I mean, it enormously, for me, publishing frees up my personal energy. So, if I have to go and tell a person a story one person at a time, I personally get sick of that about 10 times in, or maybe certainly by 100 times I've told that story, I'm sick of it. If I write that and publish it and put it out there, it can be seen by literally thousands of people, and it's energized me in the writing of it. And then anytime someone wants to know about that particular topic, I can personally revisit it if I've forgotten. Yesterday I was having a chat with someone about mainstream media, and I realized I'd written a blog about this in 2010. So I went and Googled this blog, and up it came, and I found my clarity of thought from 2010 on that particular topic, and went, actually, here's what I was writing about this in 2010. So it provides, there's so much value. I mean, it really is, one of the most valuable activities.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to come to a question now, which is really one of the most important questions of the show. So, Daniel, how has publishing positioned you? So we're drilling into the positioning side of things now, and how has that made a difference? And so I guess, the whole key person of influence thing maybe is tied in with this. So how has it changed the way people perceive you, and what benefits has that brought for your business?
Well, talking about positioning more broadly, in the agricultural age, you had to have positioning, which was called land ownership, which basically, if you wanted to generate wealth, you needed to be able to say, that's my land over there, I own that land, and then you do something with that land, right? But people needed to know where to go to find you. They needed to see a document called a title deed of ownership, where you could actually say, yes, this person owns this amount of land and is developing it in their own unique way. So whether they're growing something on it or putting buildings on it, but they own that land and they're developing it. And that was the agricultural model, where you were positioned really by where you were geographically positioned. So if you owned very valuable real estate and very valuable land, you became very, very wealthy if it was in the right position. So in the digital economy, or the ideas economy, positioning is about niches and micro niches and being known for something. So if you're the world's most well-known paleo food chef, then, most people walking down the street may not even know what paleo chefing means, but there's probably 3 or 4 million people globally who do, and those people will go and find you no matter where you are to find out about, your paleo recipes.
Yeah.
So for me, I use publishing to help position myself. And the positioning that I was interested in, not because I was calculating about it, but just because it was my passion, was this idea of the entrepreneur revolution. In fact, I'd written half the book Entrepreneur Revolution before I'd written Key Person of Influence.
Okay.
But the two go very, very much hand in hand. The entrepreneur revolution is made possible when a key person of influence meets technology. And so I'd written this idea, but I really wanted to position myself as someone who was a thought leader around key person of influence, because I knew, whether it was known at the time or not, but I knew that was the future. That was where things were going. And I wanted to own that concept, that the world was going to revolve around key people of influence and everyone else was going to become commoditized. And I wanted to be the one saying, hey guys, this is what's happening. You need to get on the page. Secondly, I wanted to own the space around entrepreneur revolution, and that we're moving in transformational times, and entrepreneurship's probably one of the better things you could be doing with your time on the planet for the times that we're in. So I wanted to sort of own that, that sort of space and position myself in that space. In the sense that you originally asked about how do people perceive, as an author, you get perceived, radically different than as a non-author. So, prior to publishing, I built multi-million-dollar businesses, and I built, businesses in multiple geographies, and I rubbed shoulders with some of the world's most interesting people. However, I was always considered to be that, that young entrepreneurial sales and marketing kind of guy who was promoting other valuable people and who was kind of riding on other people's coattails. As soon as I was published, and especially as soon as the publishing, got traction and it was a best-selling book and that it achieved #1 and all those sorts of things on Amazon. I mean, suddenly people, want to interview me, and suddenly people want me to speak on stage, and suddenly insane deals come finding me, and insane amounts of money and finance for ventures and projects come and say, yeah, we want to get involved in whatever you're involved in. So there was just a big shift in what happened as a result.
Yeah, so it's opened up a whole lot of doors in terms of your perception within the business community, but presumably this very, very similar thing has happened with your clients and your prospects as well. More and more people, they're not only finding you now, but they're seeking you out. You're moving away from the commoditization trap.
Yeah, so I used to have to go and chase opportunities, and I was constantly chasing, and I was making 70 phone calls a day to 100 phone calls a day, attempts to chase. These days I actually have a full-time employee whose job is to curate opportunities. So we actually have Ray on the team, who I think you dealt with.
That's right.
And his job is to go through my inbox every day and actually have a look at, what do we want to do and what don't we want to do. And essentially he spends a lot of the time just curating the stuff that shows up.
Yeah. So that's a huge lesson for anybody listening. To go from having to, and I'm guessing a lot of those calls were probably cold calls as well, which, you do them, but they're not necessarily fun, to actually having to employ somebody full time to curate all the opportunities and the offers and the requests that are coming in, really by positioning yourself as the expert, the go-to guy on both KPI, key person of influence, and entrepreneur revolution. So very, very powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Good. So the next question is, I want to flip things around a little bit. And you've probably got I know you've got lots of examples to choose from, but maybe you'll just pick one out for us. So what I want to do is flip it around and put the spotlight on your audience or your clients and ask you if you could give us one example of someone or a company that you've reached with your message or worked with, and how that's made a difference in their life or business. Yeah, so you don't have to give names if you don't want to. But
you've
phenomenal got thousands.
Recently we put together a series of videos of success stories of our clients, and I looked online, and we've been making sort of one a month or a couple of months. I looked online, and we've actually got 70 insanely mind-blowing case studies of our clients who have basically achieved their wildest dreams as a result of working with us, and that's 70 video case studies where you can hear it in their own words. And is that, sorry to interrupt you there, is that on the website or is it YouTube channel? It's on YouTube at the moment. So if you go to Key Person of Influence on YouTube, you'll see there's a whole section now called Success Stories. And there's about 70 people there who, in their own words, basically say that their entire life has been changed and their business is flying, and it's as a result of what we've worked with them on. Blows my mind, the success stories. There's literally hundreds of massive success stories to draw upon. I'm going to throw two into the mix really quickly. One, an engineer, Jackie Sharples in Melbourne, and she really wanted to get into health, fitness and wellness, but wasn't sure how to do that. And we got her to pitch herself. She'd done a fitness qualification, as well as engineering, but her fear was that she could never make as much money in fitness as she could as an engineer. So we helped her position herself with this program that she built, this product that she built called Love Your Body, Love Your Life, which is a corporate women's fitness program that she now runs around Victoria, Australia. And she wrote the book called If Your Body Could Talk, which was a phenomenal set of letters from your body to you. Mm-hmm. So your body is writing you every day saying, it's telling you how it feels and how it feels to have too much food to process and how it feels to have so many cups of coffee going through it and what has to happen and all this sort of stuff. Mm. And it's a series of letters that start off with an idea that there's a relationship that's broken between the body and us, and that we need to repair that relationship in order to have health, wellness and fitness. And it really strikes a chord. She got great publicity around it. And now she has a thriving business with a phenomenal product, and she's employing people, and she's earning more than she would as an engineer as a result. Now that's an idea of someone who's in who's in a job, who used our method to go out and start a successful business, and it all happened very rapidly in under 12 months. I'll give you another very quick example. Rob Gardner is a guy who started with us, who had 55 staff, and he committed himself to turning his 50-plus team into key people of influence. So he encouraged every single person, top to bottom, to learn how to pitch. He encouraged every single person, top to bottom, to be blogging on the company blog, to understand how product and intellectual property frameworks work, to understand, the profile they wanted to build and the profile of the business, and to understand partnerships and joint ventures. And he used our method to create a company of key people of influence. So he already had a very successful business turning over millions and being written up and all of those sorts of things. But as a result of working with us, he's personally been recognized as one of the top 10 most influential people in the financial services space in the pension industry globally, on the same list as Warren Buffett. He has also gone on to employ more people. I think they're up to close to 80 people. And he's also 20% above and beyond his expected profit and revenue for the year. So 2 examples. One is an entrepreneur who's well established and who wants to transform the organization to the next level, and one is someone who's got an idea and wants to go out and start it, both of which are great success stories and also good fun.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate the fact that you shared too, because as you say, like you've got somebody who's gone from a job situation to, in less than 12 months, a really successful business. And that sounds like an amazing concept for a book, Letters to Your Body. Or letters from your body, rather. So for anybody starting out or very early stages, that's a great story. But the fact that it also works so well and takes a well-established business with 55 staff to a whole another level, puts somebody as a top 10 influencer worldwide in their space. Both very powerful testimonies there. And what I'll do for those 70 or so testimonials you've got on the YouTube channel, I'll put a link to that in the show notes. So anybody that wants to watch those can go there and click on the link and find it easily.
Yeah, but be very warned, you'll want to work with us after you do.
Okay. So fair warning from Daniel there. Okay. So that was great. So Let's move on a little bit to the practical side of things, because you've given us lots of great insights, some great stories and examples there. But can you break down for us the key steps? I know that there's a whole 40-week program on this, so we'll just go for the high-level overview. But the key steps involved in getting your message out to your target audience. What do you say to people who come to you who need your help? Well,
everything for us revolves around this methodology called the Key Person of Influence method, and for us, it's just 5 things. So key people of influence have to be proficient at pitching. They have to be able to publish content. They have to be able to create or source products. They have to raise their profile and the profile of their organization, and they have to do partnerships. And what that translates into is that you become less of one of the functional people within the industry and more of what we call one of the vital people in the industry. So vital means life force, or it also means irreplaceable. So your goal is to become an irreplaceable life force within your industry. And they're the 5 things that consistently show up as acts of leadership within the context of a key person of influence. Once you are a key person of influence, you earn more money, have more fun, attract more opportunity, and build a great brand and reputation that becomes an asset in itself. So we've broken it down to those 5 steps. We've written a lot about those 5 steps. They're the 5 things that we focused on with Jackie and with Rob and with our 70 other case studies. And they're the 5 things that we work on over the 40 weeks. Okay.
Pitching, I'll just recap that. So it's pitching, publishing, products, profile and partnership.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. So if somebody wanted to, obviously I would recommend that people go and check out your book and check out your website. But to get started on that, it's going to, presumably, is this a linear process? Do they start with the pitching first, get that dialed in and then move on?
Absolutely. There's a syntax. So you can't do partnerships if you don't have a profile, because people don't want to partner with someone. If they Google you and nothing happens, they don't want to partner. You can't have a profile if you haven't got a means for funding that profile. So you have products. You can't build products really if you haven't got intellectual property. So you publish. You can't publish if you don't have a way of verbally articulating what it is that you do in the world. So you pitch. So the pitch essentially ends up forming the underpinning of the published content. The published content underpins the product. The product underpins the profile, and the profile underpins the partnerships. So it's it has to be in a logical, sequential order. The real money is made in partnerships, but only if you've done the first 4 things.
So to get to that partnership stage, which is where all the profit is, you've got to build those first 4 steps. You've got to build those foundations. Yeah, the foundation steps are very important, and everyone wants to skip them, but people want to skip to either one of 2 things. They want to skip straight to partnerships, or they want to skip to leveraging through technology, neither of which works if you haven't done those first 4 things. Okay, well, that's very good advice. So the next question I have, you've already really kind of described this, but I'll just echo it again because it's such an important point, which is that we live in an amazing age and we have this incredible ability to reach thousands or even millions of people with our message. And I find that really exciting. And you've already described to us how you do. So I just wanted to flag that again, because I think it's so easy for all of us to get a little bit blasé about it. We get used to having Facebook and Skype and YouTube and Google and all these different tools. And sometimes you got to sort of step back and remind yourself just a few years ago, these things didn't exist. And now we've got this amazing opportunity. And I know when you speak, you've talked about the industrial age, and prior to that, I think it was it's more sort of artisanal, wasn't it? But, people were self-employed, but they didn't have a lot of reach.
Yeah, absolutely. For the last 10,000 years of civilization, everything is underpinned by geographical connection. So if you're not geographically close, then there's a very low chance you would have done any business together or bought any products or shared any ideas. So effectively, if you look at the great religions of the world, they're all based on geography. Even after thousands of years, they're all essentially based upon geography. If you look at commerce, it was all based upon geography. So everything, ideas and commerce and philosophy, it was all geographically underpinned. We now, for the first time in human civilization, live in a world where geography is almost a second thought, or if it's a thought at all, when it comes to sharing an idea or sharing a philosophy or sharing a product. So this is a groundbreaking, phenomenal time. Couple that with the fact that we now live in a time with mass automation, and the fact that we can have a very productive society without any or many people working. Couple the facts with we live in a time where we also have 7 to 10 billion mouths to feed over the next few years. Couple the fact with we've now got anyone who wants to destroy the environment has got amazing leverage to do so. Even if all of us are doing something that's a little bit destructive, it ends up having a massive effect on the planet.
Yeah.
We live in absolutely phenomenal, bonkers times. And the most important thing about this whole idea of getting blasé is the only thing we're under-resourced on at the moment is leaders. We actually have got all the answers, all the stuff, all the technology to solve this stuff. But we're just lacking in influential leaders and people who are willing to actually lead the charge on this stuff. So, this is a great opportunity for anyone who cares passionately about a cause or cares passionately about an idea, or wants to live outside of the box to do so. So, it's not something to take for granted.
Absolutely.
We live in remarkable times.
Yeah, we do. I couldn't agree with that more. Amazing opportunities if you're prepared to step up and take them.
Yeah.
Like we say in business and also in personal development, there are people who, like Daniel, who have done this. There are steps that you can follow if you're just starting out, or like the example of Rob you gave us earlier, which even if you've got that successful business already, taking it to the next level. So seek out people like Daniel and look at what they've done to find out how to fast track yourself and become one of those leaders to actually make a difference today.
Thank you.
Okay, so last question, Daniel, for the publishing round. How do you see things developing in the future in terms of the whole getting the message out there, the way the business is going to grow, the way the world is changing with all of the stuff that's going on? Maybe just don't try and cover all of that. That's a big area, but just maybe pick out one or two things where you think things are going to develop in the future.
The future that I wrote about in my book was where the world moves to small entrepreneurial teams. And even in large companies, they break it down into entrepreneurial teams. I'm seeing large companies that have entrepreneur incubators within them for their employees to take ideas. So the idea for anyone is to establish themselves as a key person of influence in something, and then to connect with the other entrepreneurial teams and to build an entrepreneurial team themselves. And that, I probably misjudged it in my book and sold the idea too much of going out on your own and starting your own business and all of that sort of stuff. The reality is that, being part of a smaller entrepreneurial team is just as exhilarating, just as fun, just as impactful as going out and starting one. In fact, there's a lot of the time there's more leverage in running something entrepreneurial within a large organization. So either way, I'm not attached to how it happens, but focus less on being a repetitive, functional bot within an organization and become one of those dynamic, leaders within a team, whether it's your own team or someone else's team.
That's a really good point. So I think the lesson there is, you can go out and become an entrepreneur yourself, or if you're not in a company that enables you to do that and you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to make a difference, find a company that is building small teams or is just starting up where you can come in and be that key person of influence within the company if you don't want to do it off your own back, as it were. But, be aware that there are both types of opportunities out there in increasing numbers, I'm sure, as more and more businesses, new and well established, are kind of waking up to the idea of the importance of these entrepreneurial teams.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The Success Round.
Great. Okay. So let's move now into the penultimate round, which is the Success Round. So this is a quickfire round, Daniel, where you get the chance to share with us some of the things that are helping you to succeed at such a high level. So the first question in the Success Round is this. Can you give us one ritual or habit that is key to your success?
Well, it's going to be different for everyone, but one of the things that I've done as a ritual that's relevant to this is I regularly write, and even if it's a blog, I have the software Evernote on my iPhone, and I'll be sitting on a tube and come up with a blog idea, and I'll begin writing it in that moment and start jotting down the first thing. So I'm in the regular habit of blogging and writing. Another regular habit is I take new people out for lunch all the time, and I go out for random coffees and random lunches every week without having any particular agenda or knowing where it will lead. Mm-hmm. I just go out and meet interesting people with a very open mind to just maybe it's something, maybe it's nothing, maybe it's something 2 years from now. But I'm a great lover of people, and I love building relationships before I even know where they're going to end up. So that's something that I think has been helpful. And then the other probably habit is one that my dad gave me, which was picking up the phone and making a few phone calls whenever I've got an idea. So having an idea and then picking up the phone and saying, hey, what do you think of this? Or is this something you'd buy? Or is this something you'd be interested in? And just not being afraid to pick up the phone and talk to someone and ask them, whether an idea has a future.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. And all three are. And that last one is, we touched on this before the call, didn't we? The idea that you don't necessarily create a product or a service until you know for sure that people actually want to buy it. And what better way to do it than picking up the phone to people and actually asking them.
Yeah, big time. Especially people it always makes me laugh. People, it seems, would rather spend £5,000 setting up a website with a shopping cart and then trying to see if people would buy, rather than just picking up the phone and seeing if people would buy. Mm-hmm. Because a shopping cart and a website is a great way to leverage something that's already selling, but it's a pretty rubbish way to find out whether something would actually sell if you don't know that. So far better to just literally walk out on the street with a clipboard and some photos and conduct a survey rather than, or pick up the phone and call some people rather than go to all that trouble and expense.
Yeah,
anyway, digress.
Absolutely. Okay, so you've already given us one, I'm just going on to the next question now. So you've given us one resource that you use, which is Evernote, which is a great resource. But have you got another one that you could share with people? Yeah,
I'm a big believer that an environment dictates performance, and that the best resource is to actually make sure that you're always in the right environment. So for me, that means environment is more than physical environment. It's the people that you hang around with, the ideas that you connect with. So the best resource is really constructing an environment that brings out the best of you. For me, that means joining great private members clubs and working from interesting workspaces and making sure that I'm part of an accountability group and those sorts of things.
That's a really good tip. I like that very much. Okay, so next question then. Can you give us one great business or marketing book or show or podcast or website or blog, in addition to your own, obviously, that you would recommend?
So I love Seth Godin's stuff. I'm a big fan of Seth. His blog is really phenomenal. His books are great. He writes almost every day. They're very short and punchy, and they're good for those reasons. I also love biographies. So, I love Steve Jobs' biography and Branson's biography. I love the Freakonomics stuff because it just is interesting and gets me thinking. They do a very good podcast.
They do, yeah.
So all of those ones are interesting.
Yeah, all good. Yeah, and I think the only one there I haven't looked at is the Jobs biography, but that's one I will get to as well.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
Okay, so could you tell us one thing? I mean, you've touched on a number of things already, but one thing that you're grateful for or something that's a highlight of your day. This could be business or personal, whatever it is you'd like to share with us.
Without labouring the point, I'm just grateful I was born when I was born. I put down a lot of my success to luck. I was very lucky to be born at the right time to the right family, in the right country, and go to the right schools. And by the way, when I say the right family and the right schools and that sort of stuff, I'm not talking about being born into a wealthy family or being born into privileged schools, but just, the fact that I got some sort of an education, the fact that, in any other time in history, I wouldn't have, had 12 years of, government paid education. And in any other time in history, I wouldn't have had running water and food in the fridge and, internet and those sorts of things. So, for me, it's not even the big stuff. It's just the basic stuff. I'm just profoundly grateful for how lucky I am, just the basic start that I got and to be in the times that we're in. I think 99% of everything that I do or achieve is probably down to sheer luck, that I was in that particular time. I don't think my skill set would have been very valuable, throughout many periods of the last 10,000 years. Yeah. It just so happens that my skill set's valuable right now. So I'm just very lucky.
And and like we all are lucky, but obviously you still got to go out and make it happen, which you've done, which is great. So have you got a favorite business or inspirational quote you can share with us?
Yeah. So one of my mentors is a guy called Darren Sherlaw. And he profoundly changed the way I run my business with one quote, actually. And it's, the quote was called "Income follows assets." So previously I had thought that income followed sales and marketing, and that you had to that basically you could do sales and marketing around anything and make money off it. And that if you weren't making enough money, it's because you weren't doing enough sales and marketing. So Darren really shared with me that income follows assets, and the asset that you have to develop is intellectual property. And he gave me some great ideas around how to develop intellectual property, and the value of that. So now the difference is that whenever I think I'd like more income, I think, well, what asset am I going to invest in or develop in order to do that? Same when I'm working with a charity or advising a charity, I actually advise them on, if we want more income for this charity, how are we going to create an asset that would generate that income? And, we could create a patrons program that would be an asset to people. We could create additional reports that demonstrate the work that we're doing. We could, create a patrons group. All of those kind of things. But the first thing is looking at what are the additional assets that are required in order to generate the result, as opposed to what's the sales and marketing approach.
Good piece of advice there. Thank you. So finally, last question in the success round. If you could give our listeners just one piece of business advice, what would it be?
Just one piece of advice?
Yeah, that's a tough one, I know.
Well, I'd say stop looking for just one piece of business advice. Because running a business is like walking on a tightrope. If I tell you to lean left, it's probably because you're about to fall right. If I tell you lean right, it's probably because you're leaning too far left. So the paradox with business is almost any piece of advice can be true or false based upon where the business is at that particular time. And it's a set of principles rather than, everyone's looking for the software or the one thing or the stuff. And business or entrepreneurship is kind of like a martial art. There are certain things that are great practices, but essentially, you have to develop a set of principles that work for you and that work over time, and develop those and understand those at a deeper level. So I'm not really big on any one thing, because it could be true at some times and not so true at another time. One thing that I do know, I suppose, that is incredibly true is that you get what you pitch for, and you're always pitching. You're either going to pitch something into existence or out of existence. Right. So, that tends to be something that I can't find an example where it doesn't tend to work. People who seem to be succeeding are very good at pitching ideas, and they're able to communicate their ideas, and people who failed often are pitching for failure. So they often say stuff like, you know, it's really tough right now, but do you think you could do business with me? Or, or I'm struggling, or they even pitch something like, I'm running a startup, or I'm in a startup mode. And pitching that you're a startup perpetually has you become a startup, or stay a startup, or people treat you as a startup. So I've heard people who pitch themselves as a pre-revenue startup for 2 or 3 years. I think startup phase really for most businesses is maybe 2 or 3 months at most. So why not just pitch that you're running that business? So you get what you pitch for, and you're always pitching is probably something that I've found to be a fairly true maxim wherever you are.
Yeah, and of course that ties into that very first step of those 5 things to become a KPI, doesn't it? So yeah, pitching is key. And also, I mean, you kind of gave us 2 there, because successful business is about developing the right set of principles and knowing when to apply something and when not to. So thank you for both of those.
The wrap-up round.
Right, now it's time for the final round, which is the wrap-up round, which means we've just got 2 questions left. So next question is a favorite of mine because I never know what to expect. So Daniel, what's one thing that's cool or unusual about you, or that you've done that people probably wouldn't know?
Well, they probably wouldn't. I was thinking about this. I did 4 years of Latin jive dancing, and to this day I can Latin jive dance reasonably well if thrown onto a dance floor with someone who's willing. But given the fact that was one of the ways that I won my fiancée over, and given the fact that she's 8 months pregnant means that I don't do a lot of it at the moment. But I did actually do 4 years solid of Latin jive dancing in my 20s.
Okay.
Which is a hidden skill or a hidden talent that
you can always pull that one out when you need it.
Exactly. It's a very valuable skill to have, and I would certainly recommend it to any young men who are wondering what to do in their 20s.
They start watching Strictly and learn how to dance.
Exactly.
Great. So, Daniel, last question, but very important one. If people want to find out more about you, your products or services, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of this idea that you are who Google says you are. So if you Google Daniel Priestley, you can find out pretty much everything that I say about me and everything that everyone else says about me. So, punching my name, Daniel Priestley, into Google tends to produce my blog, my Twitter account, my books. It produces brand new test that we just created called the Key Person of Influence test or quiz, which is at keypersonofinfluence.com/quiz. And that quiz actually scores people on their existing influence in that context. But, I'm a really big believer that, these days people trust a Google search more than anything else, and they want to be able to see reviews, and they want to be able to see what other people say, and they want to see, if there's anything positive, anything negative. So I'm just a big fan of, if you're thinking of working with me or anyone, go down the route of doing the Google search and having a look at what you find.
Good advice. Yeah, so go out and Google Daniel, and I'd certainly recommend you check out Daniel's stuff and pick up his books and read those. Really build on some of the things Daniel's covered here on the show today. So Daniel, that was an amazing interview, and I've loved listening to your stories and some fantastic insights there. Very inspirational stuff and tons of great information. So thank you from me, and thank you on behalf of everybody listening as well for being so generous with your time.
Thanks, John. Thank you so much for having me on one of your first podcasts.
It's been an absolute pleasure. So, Daniel, thank you very much, and let's talk soon.
Cheers, all the best.
Cheers, Daniel. Bye-bye.
Three times a week, Publish, Position, Profit brings you interviews with amazing experts and entrepreneurs who are crushing it in business. Join us to hear their stories, the obstacles they overcame on their way to success, the lessons they learned on their journey, and what motivates them to succeed now. Discover how they are using today's incredible publishing opportunities to reach their target audience, build relationships, position themselves as leaders in their field, and profit from doing something they love. Don't miss out on another episode. Visit publishpositionprofit.com, where you can join us every week by subscribing through iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud.
Thank you for joining us. Check out publishpositionprofit.com for show notes and links to the great resources mentioned. And remember, now is your time. So prepare to publish, position, and profit. And start living life on your terms.